People around the world, you welcome on POP Podcast, Progress Over Perfection, the podcast that will change your life forever. Are you ready? Let's go!
Ciao a tutti, hello everyone, and you welcome to POP, Progress Over Perfection. This actually is the first interview of this very new podcast, and I hope you love the person I'm going to interview. Is a very fascinating woman, entrepreneur that has been able to do something very fantastic. Her name is Hannah Richards. Hannah Richards ran the whole business as a money coach, helping individual and couple with the day-to-day aspect of money. What is interesting is that she was able to retire at the age of 30. So I think we should stop and listen. All right. First of all, thank you to be here, Hannah. How are
Thank
you?
you very much for having me on the podcast today.
So, I would like to ask where everything started for you, because we have a couple of chats, and I can see that you're very passionate about this, and I would like to listen a little bit more about your story and where this passion about money come from.
Yeah, I am very, very passionate about financial literacy and improving people's access to knowledge about money and in bettering themselves when it comes to money. So it is a huge passion of mine, and I have been fulfilling that passion both personally since my early 20s in building my portfolio and my knowledge, and then through my business as well over the last few years. Yeah.
I was reading your bio, and I'm interested to understand a bit more about your families and who were your mentor and how everything starts.
Yes. So all of our money stories come right from back when we are children. So growing up, I had just middle income parents, but I had a really strong positive influence around money through my grandfather. He was a businessman in his own right, and I saw the positive impact that he could have with his money because he had learned about money and spent time learning about money and doing well with his money. And so as a child, I could see the positive impacts that had. And so it was like fantastic for us to, for example, get air conditioning put throughout our house or go to Cable Beach up north, funded by my grandfather, who was able to have extra money that I guess those things we wouldn't have had otherwise without his support. So it was a very strong influence for me in why I pursued getting better with money.
What is now the relationship that you have with your family? So they understand where your wealth come from, they influence.
Yes, definitely. Unfortunately, my grandfather has passed on now, but yes, he left behind a strong legacy, which for family was very important to him. Yeah.
So I've seen that you worked with a lot of people around all Australia. I looked at some numbers, few thousand people as a money coach, correct? So what did you learn from working with all these people about what people understand about money, what are the beliefs about money, and if there is something that would you put out there, say, guys, I need to wake up because money are.
Yes, you learn a lot through working with people, don't you? We often think that money is a numbers problem, and sometimes it is, but majority of the time it is more of a habits and beliefs problem that we have. And so sometimes I guess the biggest learning that I've had from working with so many people is that what we often think is maybe the problem is maybe actually not what the problem is once we delve into it a little bit more and start to unpack some of the behaviors that we've got, and because they're so normal to us, we don't realize that actually that behavior is something that is actually what's holding us back, but because it's so normal we don't realize it. So that's definitely the biggest learning that I've.
What kind of behavior?
Yeah, so for example, like maybe someone is continuously trying a new budget every single week, like trying to do the Barefoot Investor or trying to buy a budget planner or trying to get a new software, and they can keep trying these new different tools without realizing that maybe it's actually that they need to be putting their energy and efforts into earning more income because they're on a really low salary, and it's just never going to, that amount of money, that amount of income that they're getting is never going to fund the things that they want, for example. Or vice versa, maybe someone's earning really good money and has a belief that if only they earn more money, they will see financial success, when really they actually need to go into their spending habits and their financial literacy and knowledge about investments, for example, in order to see financial success.
So to earn money, you need to earn money to invest to make money. That's
Yes.
correct.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So, and how people with a low income can overcome a situation of poverty, even if they don't have the knowledge or the possibility to earn more money.
Yes. So, I mean, technology these days means that you can actually invest, say, from $1 at a time. So there are micro investing apps where you can actually get started. Today, it's very accessible to anyone on any level of income. They can get started with investing. But for someone in the situation you've described, if they've grown up in poverty or grown up in an environment of low income, then really the biggest impact for them would be to go and seek out new role models or new business relationships or new colleagues or a coach, for example, or someone else who can help them change those beliefs about what is possible for them and what is possible for money. Because if we get stuck in the same surroundings, we're not going to be able to dream any bigger than where we're at today.
So let's believe that, for example, if I'm the one that earn $35,000 a year as an income, and I don't have the chance to do much more because maybe have some impediment. What would be your suggestion for someone like me in this situation where I can put some of the money, where maybe not straight away, but in here 10 years, I can count to have a good amount of money that can help me to be more secure in my future.
Yeah, so if there's no opportunity there to grow income, which is, I would always beg to, I don't know, me being an entrepreneur, I would always beg to differ. I feel there's always possibility for people in some way to have a strength. I believe everyone has a strength, and if they unlock that, then they can earn more. But let's say for a particular reason that's not accessible right now, it definitely doesn't mean that you can't still even just put the smallest amounts away for future use. So even if it is just $1 a day, for example, that you put into a savings account. With money, like with fitness, for example, the small habits that you build, even if they're small, they will compound over time into something much bigger. So even though it might seem really small when you're starting out, don't give up on that, or don't let that hold you back from envisioning, for example, that $1 that you put away every day, that over the course of a year, over the course of 10 years, and work out how much that's going to add up to. And that's going to snowball and compound, particularly if you have it in a savings account, for example, and add up to so much more than you would ever expect.
So what do you mean much more than I never expect? So for example, if I put $1 in one of these account.
Yeah.
Okay. What can be the expectation if I put every day consistently $1 every single day in this account in 10 years time? So is that $365 a year, correct? In 10 years should be $3,000, 3,000 something in 10 years time. But what can be my earning in this kind of investment?
Yeah. It's not just that you are putting the money away. If you put the money away into an investment or a savings account, then you are going to get your money working for you. So your money will start to make you money. For example, there is a free calculator, Money Smart, if you go online, and you can just put into that. If I put away $1 a day, for example, for the next 30 years, and then at the moment, like the highest interest savings account that you can get is, for example, 5.5%. So if I plug that in, you end up with, over the 30 years, you end up putting about $11,000 in of your own money, but you end up earning about almost 17,000 of free money that you've earned through interest. So you end up, instead of with the ability to spend $1,000, which is what you would have had if you just spent it in the moment that you earned it, the benefit, or I guess the payoff you're getting from saving, is an extra 17,000 in your pocket from saving that you can have for, well, 17,000 could get you a really nice holiday, couldn't it, for example?
Interesting. So, and how many of these application or website there is out there? What is the
Yes, there's
best one, you think?
Sorry?
And maybe if you want to share with us the best one, would be great.
Yeah, the Money Smart one is built by the Australian government, so it's definitely my go-to for any calculators or information that you want about money. It's built by the government, so it's very simple and easy to use as well, and it's free. You just Google Money Smart online. Yeah.
And any extra application that people can use?
Yeah, so for example, for tracking where your money goes, so a lot of people, when they come to me, they don't have a good understanding of where their money is being spent. So there are several apps that you can use that hook into your bank account that categorize your money and show you where it's going. For example, there's one called WeMoney and there's another one called Frollo. I think Finder also do it as well. So there are a few apps. If you go to the App Store, there are a few apps that can hook into your bank account, and you can start doing some budgeting and see where all your money's going. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you. What do you think there are the mistakes people make about money? What are the beliefs that are very hurtful for handling money? What are the
Mm, yeah. So I think one of the biggest beliefs is that money isn't accessible to everyone, and that you have to be greedy. You have to, um, I guess, hurt others or have one up on others, to us or them mentality. You're either in the rich or the poor. And this is, of course, when we are watching TV shows, and particularly we're growing up and we see fairy tales and there's always good and bad, for example. And so one of the beliefs that we have is that money isn't accessible to all. And particularly if, for example, we've grown up on a lower income household, that very well could be our belief. But this belief holds us back from realizing and recognizing that money is just energy. It's energy that is accessible to all. So if we think about it, back in the hunter-gatherer days, for example, how humans got from there to how they got here is by specializing in the things that we are good at. So each person had their own trade, and they worked hard on getting really good at that trade, or potentially the area or the group of farmers got really good at efficiently growing crops that already grew there, already was abundant there. So it's kind of tapping into our strengths or what we're already good at or already trained at, and getting better and better at those. And so when we think about money from that perspective of, it's actually not about good versus bad or the haves or the haves not, but it's actually more about, are you putting energy into this one thing that you are best at, and are you building yourself both professionally and personally, and working on yourself to be the best person that you can be, and grow your skills to be the best that they can be. You'll find when you have that belief instilled instead, that you can actually go out into the world and make as much money as you want.
So you're telling me that is a mindset.
Yes, it's definitely a huge part of my mindset. There is 1,000% also financial literacy that has to, there's knowledge that you have to have as well. But it definitely starts with the mindset.
So what are the challenges you find with your clients?
Gosh, where do I start?
Where you want?
Challenges. Well, for example, some of the challenges that my couples experience are like maybe a different knowledge about money. So sometimes you may think that you're having the same conversation, but you can't get onto the same page if you've actually got a different level of understanding about money. And some people got taught by their parents. Some people really took economics class in school and they understood that. And other people, they grew up and money was not talked about in their household, or numbers and maths were not their thing. And so in economics class, they didn't quite grasp the same level of knowledge as someone else might. So really, there sometimes can be an education piece that needs to happen. Other issues that clients face, and couples in particular, would be not understanding the money beliefs and the subconscious beliefs that you've got playing out. So as I mentioned, like if we are consistently trying to make changes with our money and trying to change our behaviors without understanding what our thoughts and feelings are about money first, as you would know as a counselor, then we're just going to sabotage, and we're not going to see the change in outcome that we want if all we're trying to do is change our behaviors.
So
So that's a few examples. I could keep going on forever.
Yeah. No, please. I want to just point out something here. So it looked like to me that everything come from or the way that we grow up, the people surround us. So where we learned about money, what we learn about money. If we grow up in a household where money were the devil because the rich people are all bad and ugly, we will never make money. Or at the other side, because we want to stay far from that situation, so we're going to make a lot of money. So do you think people's and couples lack of spending time talking about money, especially during the dating time?
Yes, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I don't usually help couples when they're during the dating time, but I definitely have a lot of single women who I help, and when they start dating, a big reason that they come to me is because they actually want to feel more worthy of a partner, or more confident in themselves by being more confident with money. And that actually helps them get into the dating game, because they feel like if the money conversation comes up, they don't have to feel so much shame around their financial situation. So that's just my experience of.
Who is what is the client that come up with this kind of conversation with you?
Have had both men and women. I've had these conversations with both men and women. I think as a woman, I have naturally attracted a few more female clients, but I've definitely had many male clients come to me in that situation as well, where they would like to improve their financial knowledge in order to feel better about their own financial standing before they go into the dating scene. Or maybe they are dating and then they've gotten to the point where they're getting more serious with their partner, but their partner is in a really good financial position and my client is not, and they feel like to be able to take the next steps in the relationship, they need to have, for example, funds for a house deposit so that they can get a house together or fund a wedding. So, I do see it from both genders, to be honest.
So it's not true that women stay with men only for money, correct?
You're asking a money coach who went out and built her own financial independence. So I very much vehemently do not think that.
No, I know it's a very tricky question, but I was watching the other day, this guy was talking about the fact that the value of the man stands only on the wallet and for women. I'm sure there is some women have this kind of situation, like maybe men stay with women maybe for the beauty or for other reasons. But I find very difficult and listen these people where they point out this fact about women. Women stay with the men only for the money. And then I talk to people like you and say, well, what would you say to people like this?
Yeah, I definitely have heard women say, I am not going to focus on my money. I'm just going to wait for a man to come along and rescue me. I have definitely heard women say that, but it just comes down to their own belief about their own empowerment with money. So I guess females growing up, for example, I think there's a huge lack of transparency when it comes to money, because we grow up watching, for example, like Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City, right? How does she's a journalist, but she owns a beautiful apartment in New York and owns so many designer shoes. Or, for example, like Gilmore Girls, right? It's like a single parent household, but they're able to buy takeaway every single night. So I think there's this real lack of transparency that women sometimes get, where it doesn't quite make sense to them. The numbers don't quite make sense to them, because we watch things, shows like that on TV, which don't represent the realities of money and what we find is and what we can know is achievable. And so because it's not transparent, I think a lot of people get their head stuck in the sand because it's too confusing and for them to kind of marry up,
And
how it works in reality.
for this kind of people, what would you suggest?
Yeah, I would suggest sort of blocking out any of the outside influences that they might have around money. Too often we can even see people who might be owning cars, fancy cars, for example, or going on some holidays, or maybe have a partner who does fund a lot of expenses, but start to then understand, I guess if you're going to look at outside influences, then also don't just look at the surface level, but also understand more of the story behind that. So for example, the person with the flashy car, maybe they've actually got a lot of debt, and so they're going to be working well and truly past the age that anyone else in their friend group is working. Or, for example, someone taking a lot of holidays, they could come back from a holiday with 20 grand of credit card debt. Or, for example, like look up stories of financial abuse, where you find that women may be with a partner who, or males may be with a partner who seems really financially successful and outwardly has a lot of money and showers the other partner in gifts, but really they're miserable and abused in their relationship. So yeah, I guess just my advice would be to go further than looking at the surface level that you are looking at when it comes to money, and start to read more stories about money, or get to know other sides of people's experiences with money and go a little bit deeper.
So it's more that people should really start to look to understand, because this podcast is about self-development. So self-development is very important in this field, correct? So it's something that or you go to do business, a market, a university, or finance, or otherwise it's very difficult that you can find, for example, if you study to become an architect or a nurse, that you find, maybe architect, yes, but a nurse or a bricklayer or any other job, that actually you find someone that teach you about money. And the problem is not how to make money, is not the amount of money that you make, but is about how you manage the money. Many people make a lot of money, but they spend many more. And so they're going to retire in very late, or maybe never, because they haven't been able to manage the money. Is about understanding money and to study money and build up mindset.
Yes, exactly. There are always different avenues out there to get support with the numbers. For example, you can see a financial advisor, a coach like myself, you can see a financial counselor. There's always help out there for learning about investing, for example, or learning about how to do a budget. There's always help out there to help with the practical and the numbers and the financial literacy side. But I guess, this podcast today, what we're talking about is it has to start with the mindset first, and the personal development, the self-development first, and then the small part really is going to get help with the actual numbers side of it.
Mm-hmm. No, I love it. I love it. I think you're spot on this. I don't have to tell you this because so this is your job. I was very interested about your nickname and ask you about your nickname. You are known as the wealthy empath. What do you mean that?
Yeah, so the origin of that really is you're going to laugh, but I originally had my name on social media, and I got told that there were too many Hannah Richards in the world for anyone to ever find me. Because if you Google it, there's 50,000 of them. So I had to come up with something very unique. Actually had to take a big practice to come to what was really felt authentic to me. And for me, I am a big believer in, first of all, wealth rather than being rich. I really value wealth because for me it reminds me of staying true to my values, that I don't have to present as being rich to the world, but I can have a nest egg in the background helping me be able to fund my lifestyle and give to charitable causes. And then the empath part is because I have a real connection and love of connecting with people and building relationships and believing that everyone can be the best version of themselves. So I really enjoy being able to listen to people's deepest desires and help them sort of unlock those and build a life that is very authentic to them. And it's just what's important to me.
You were talking about wealth and
Mm,
richness.
mm.
What is the difference between the two?
Well, for some people it's the same. For me, being rich implies that you may be on a high salary, so you can go to the bank and fund a high mortgage or fund a big car loan, but you've got a lot of debt behind you. So you're going to have to be working for most of your life and you're going to be strapped to that paycheck. So for example, in my opinion, a lot of people get trapped in that instance because they can't actually do anything different. They don't have the headspace to have any freedom or flexibility in their life. They may have on the outside, on the surface, they may have what people view as success with money, but really they're kind of trapped to the money because they've got all these debt payments that they have to be making. And I get a lot of clients in that space. Whereas for me, wealth is about, and being good with money is about freedom, and being rich doesn't give you that. But for me, being freedom was having an investment portfolio that earns me money while I sleep, and it doesn't require debt payments like a mortgage does, where I have to be subject to paying my mortgage. The bank's going to come and get me, for example, if I don't make a repayment. Stocks, for example, for me, and building wealth is more about when I do have surplus, I'm able to have the freedom to put it into my investments, and then it generates me passive income for the future. And it's not as trapped a feeling for me. Yeah.
Okay. So you're telling me that being rich means making a lot of money and have the power to go in the bank and maybe ask money to improve your richness.
Yeah.
That at the same time, it can be sometimes a double sharp knife,
Mm,
because until everything is fine, you'll be fine. But as soon as something happened to your income,
mm.
well, everything maybe can go down as an avalanche, correct?
Yes, can go very pear-shaped. Yes, that's right.
So, and wealth means have a steady growing income that lead you to be free from any kind of debt.
Mm.
And because that's true, the debt is being without a debt is already be wealthy. That's correct.
You definitely can use debt in your wealth building journey, but you will use good debt. For example, you
Mm,
won't use debt to go out and buy a $150,000 car because it's a depreciating asset. It goes down in time. You'll use debt for a good invest house purchase, for example. So you've gone and
okay.
got advice about a particular property that is expected to go up in value. And so you'll use debt for that purpose, for example. Yeah.
Interesting. So what are the good investment? So if I want to make a debt and I want to invest in something, what are the give me 4 or 5 things I would invest aside the property?
Yes, so the difference between good and bad debt is whether what you're using it for is going to generate you income. So For example, a car goes down in value and it doesn't generate you any income usually unless you're buying the car to do Ubering, for example. Whereas investing in the stock market or investing in property or investing in a business, they all have the expectations of bringing you return on that investment. So they're going to make you income in the future. So you're using debt to be able to get back more than the amount you borrowed in the future.
So would you borrow money to invest in the stock market?
Look, I have personally done that, yes, but there's only a particular time and place that you would do that. For the average person, you may not go down that road.
Why? Because it's too difficult. There's too many inconvenience. There's too many. What's the reason?
Well, for example, if you've got a mortgage, so if someone has a mortgage and you're paying at the moment 6% on your mortgage rate, if you were to go out and borrow money to invest in stocks and you're borrowing at 6%, then maybe you would just choose to put the money against your mortgage anyway, where you would be saving your 6% interest. I mean, stocks do return, for example, like 9 to 10% on average. So it is a little bit higher, but it's going to be a lot of admin and paperwork, and you'll then get yourself into debt for maybe not so much more return. It's a more sophisticated investor that would go down that route. You want to be sure that what you're investing in is the right thing for you and is going to return a lot more for you than paying your money off a mortgage. So unless you've already been sophisticated enough to be investing normally and usually like without debt, then you're not going to jump straight into using debt, for example.
So, for example, no, I don't have any kind of debt, but I want to invest in a stock. Okay. I don't have money at the moment. For example, I don't have money at the moment. I would like to borrow $10,000 from the bank to put on stocks that maybe in 10 years' time will give me 100,000. Is a good way to go?
Compared to what is the alternative there? Like, could you borrow 10,000 to
The alternative would be me putting the money every week in the bank. Or
Yes.
borrow straight away 10,000 and let that 10,000 grow.
Yes, yep. So historically, stocks have grown more than putting your money in the bank. So if you go to, for example, Vanguard has a chart that you can Google online, and it shows that over time, putting your money in the bank will generate you 4 or 5% return, whereas investing in stocks will generate you an 8 to 10% return on average. So on average, yes, putting your money into stocks on average has historically earned you more than putting your money in cash. But there obviously is a note to that you never want to make investments without having a safety buffer first. So for example, stocks do go up, sure, but they also go down when we have crashes. So you really want to make sure that you've got a savings buffer first in case you lost your job or you had a medical accident before you start investing. That's very, very important.
So let's talk about a buffer. If I want to start to invest some money in stock, because I'm interested about stock and I don't have much money. How much I should put aside before to start to invest in stock?
Yep. So I usually say to people, think about what your worst case scenarios might be to try and work out how much you need as a buffer. So for example, if you have a car, how much is your car insurance excess in case something happened to your car, particularly if you use your car for work? Or if you have health insurance, maybe how much is your health insurance buffer should something go wrong there? But if you don't have health insurance, you need to put more away as a buffer in case you need something for medical wise. The biggest, I guess, concern that usually is the kind of the worst case scenario is if you lose your job, right? That's going to be the biggest hit to your income. So, and the way that these things go, they usually happen all together. So it's usually like you lose your job and maybe you've lost your rental, and these things all happen all together, say, for example, in a downturn during COVID, for example. So in this case, you really need to understand whether you would be eligible for Centrelink or not. So it's as simple as going to the online website to see on Centrelink to see whether you would be eligible. Usually if you're a homeowner, you won't be eligible. So you need to have, for example, at least 3 months of a buffer of your income in your savings account, because if you lose your job, or not just if you lose your job, a lot of people say, oh, but if I lose my job, I'll get a redundancy payout. No, we're thinking worst case scenario. So the worst case scenario is that you get in an accident, and you have an accident where you get injured and then you can't work, but you can't claim, it didn't happen at work, so you can't claim any workers' comp. You can't, maybe you've just started a new job, so you don't have any sick leave. Like those kind of worst case scenarios. If you own a house, you won't actually get Centrelink because you're above the test for getting Centrelink. And so you actually need to fund your expenses for a period of, say, 3 months before you can access your income protection within your superannuation. So yeah, you need to sort of go, and this is everything that I do with clients, is go to that level of detail to help them work out exactly how much they need in a buffer based on some of those different scenarios. Yeah.
Fascinating. But let's say that, for example, I make $100,000 income. Okay. I would like to, you say I need to put aside a buffer. I
Yeah.
haven't saved anything until now.
Yeah.
I say now, okay, I want to start to manage better my money. And what is the buffer in number I should put aside before to start to invest?
So if you have never saved before, then a 3-month goal is probably going to feel like a lot. Like 3 months worth of your expenses is going to feel like a lot. So I would say pick a number that for you feels achievable and start there. And then once you've got to that point, then start to do so maybe it's you pick $500 because that feels achievable for you. Or if you've literally never saved, maybe $100 is all that feels achievable. So start there, then start to think about write yourself a list of how much you think you might need as a buffer. Some of the items that I've mentioned in terms of if you're concerned about work or hot water system breaking, and sort of you have to go through and think about those worst case circumstances and how much you might need, add them all up, and then you'll have a total, and then that's how much you need to save for your buffer.
Good.
Yeah.
And what about people are in relationship? Let's talk about relationship and couples, because we have a small conversation earlier about relationship and dating. But what do you see is the lack of conversation between couples about money? And where are the mistakes couples do when talk about money?
Yeah. So the first would be that they don't talk about money until there's none of it. So
Okay.
there's no conversations about money until the bank account hits zero, and then it's just a blame game. The second would be, which is I'm sure something that you help couples with or people with every single day, is wanting your partner to change or do something differently, and going about that by trying to force them to do something differently or tell them you need them to do something differently, rather than learning about your communication, how to communicate with someone else. And we do that by telling them actually how we are feeling about something, rather than sort of pushing our partner to do something different. You can, I'm sure, talk to that much better than I can. Yeah, they're the two biggest challenges I see.
Yeah, no, it's good. Look, sometimes I talk about money with my client, but before to reach money, we have a lot of other things to talk about. And sadly, is one of the last things we talked about. And this is why I have always someone to refer, especially for this kind of situation, because anyway, when you talk about something like money, you need someone as an expert as you that actually can guide you in the right direction. And for example, a few weeks ago, came in this couple, very young couple. They are ready to get married, and we were talking about relationship. We did some pre-marriage courses, like a pre-marriage course. We talked about many things. I found that they were very, what's called, wrongly opinionated about money. Especially one of the two was saying, well, I don't want to be rich because my experience with richness is about being bad person. What do you think should be the conversation couple should have before to go through a relationship, marriage, about money? What do you think should be the conversation should have?
Mm, yeah, it is so important to understand your partner's history and background in terms of the way that they grew up with money and the way that particularly whether their parents were well off or not. This really has a huge impact. I see a lot of clients who had wealthy parents who don't actively feel the need to go out and be really good with money because they feel they might always be provided for. And so if you've got someone else in the relationship who had parents who weren't as well off, and so they feel the need to build their own financial security and they want much more of a safety buffer because they know they don't have that from their parents, then there's going to be a real tension there in the relationship because maybe the person who had the parents who were wealthy, maybe their parents weren't around all the time and didn't spend enough quality time with them. And so they have a belief that they really want to make the most of every moment that they can. And for them, that means spending their money with their partner or with their family, with their loved ones in the moment rather than building a nest egg. And so if you go into a relationship where you're each operating with your money independently, and then all of a sudden you've got a family, for example, or joint goals like holidays, but you are getting into arguments about whether we should prioritize spending money now versus saving more of a buffer or investing, for example, putting money away for the future. If you don't understand the context behind your partner's beliefs about how they've gotten to the opinion that they have, then you're going to be sort of butting heads on that conversation rather than if you actually understand deeper about how they got to their own views about money. It's easier to find a compromise if you actually understand where they are coming from. You can see their side of the story. It's coming back to the wealthy empath. It's relationships with people are all about empathetically sort of understanding where they're coming from, isn't it?
No, it's very, very good what you're saying. So when you talk with people that, for example, have a dating or they start to have this important relationship in their life, I always suggest to talk about money with the other one, to understand what is the financial situation of each other and what is the belief, as you say, the belief and how they interact with money. And well, I can see there's many people say, well, it's a very hard topic. I don't want he or she believe I'm with them just because the money. And this is very bad because doesn't help you, it doesn't help the couple to understand deeply about the situation and they going through. So when you think couple should, how many times couples should talk about money, you think? How many times a year they should stop and talk about money?
Yeah, it is so important because if either person in the relationship doesn't feel comfortable to talk about money, it will end up in one of those scenarios that I described where you're having, for example, no money left in the bank account at the end of the payday, but because you haven't actively spoken about money or that hasn't been part of your relationship, when there is a problem, it makes it so much worse to try and solve and fix it within your relationship or make it better and improve that because you haven't already established talking about money as a natural conversation. So I really think that you can bring it up even indirectly, even when you start dating, for example. It doesn't have to be asking them how much do you have in debt but you can be asking them about what some of their goals are or what they like to spend their money on. Like you can ask them indirectly, if you won the lotto tomorrow, what would you spend your money on, or what would you do with it? Or how do you how would you like to manage money together as a couple, for example? What is an ideal scenario for you? I have sometimes some clients who, I've got a client at the moment who, like, their partner wants them to manage all of the money. And I have other clients who both people want to remain independent. So I don't think you can assume that someone else wants the same thing as you do for your money, which sometimes, because it's family inherited, we've only seen how a family approach it. So we don't realize that there are other ways that you can actually manage money, and people might have a difference of opinion there. So it's actually really important to bring that up quite early on to understand how your partner feels about it, and get conversing about money to be quite normal. So, I mean, for my partner and I, when we both started to manage money jointly, we used to catch up every month. Now we do it as and when we need, but definitely when we first started joining our finances, we had monthly date nights.
So do you think it is a good thing have joint finance between couples in relationship, or is better have separate um, account? And how would you suggest to people to manage this aspect of life?
I usually recommend that couples, while they're in the early stages of dating, they still remain having their own sort of money goals, financial goals. So they still manage their own money. Maybe they have a joint account where they fund joint holidays or joint going out, for example. But they still remain. There's still a sense of independence that they can pursue their own financial goals. When couples start to, for example, own a mortgage together, be de facto and living together for a while, then you could have a joint account, so you can start to naturally have conversations about joint money goals, whether it's saving for a holiday or saving for a wedding or saving for a house or investing. You can start to have some of those joint goals and conversations around what you want for your money. But I do always, with all of my clients, also give them their own personal splurge buckets, because sometimes, I mean, you would know this much better than I would, but sometimes when we get into a relationship, we can easily fall into a pattern of doing the same things over and over, or doing what the other person does. And sometimes it can be really healthy. I know from my own experience, it can be really healthy to be always asking myself, like, what is it that I'm feeling in this stage of life that I need or want to be doing, and have my own sort of independence with where I can be spending my money, and feel free to change it up and how I spend my money, and not have someone else watching what I'm doing, or being too meticulously looking at what I'm spending my money on, because everyone has different values. So yeah, I do set
Mhm.
shared savings goals and shared bills accounts, but their own personal splurge spending account.
So I was reading, I read the Barefoot book, and he was suggesting to have one week meeting at the beginning, correct? One meeting where you can, he was saying eating something, I don't remember. And would you suggest that too? So at the beginning, have multiple meeting between the couples where they can sit and talk about where to invest, how to invest, where to put the money, and actually make a plan with that?
Yeah, 100%. So when couples work with me, we do weekly meetings for the first 4 weeks, and then fortnightly meetings for the next 2 months after that. Majority of couples are good to go from there. Some stay on if they've got more complex circumstances of business, or they've got debts, then they'll stay on for month to month. But that's the frequency that I've found work with my clients. So I can only imagine it would also work well if you're doing it yourself as well.
What if I come to you and I want to work with you, and I start to do the 4 weeks for, or long, sorry, for 3 months,
3 months, yeah.
3 months for every week, and then every 2 weeks for another 3 months, correct?
So the first month is weekly, and then the next 2 months are fortnightly.
Okay. In these 3 months, what actually can couple from don't have anything in place to what can be the situation after 3 months of working with you?
Yeah, so a lot of my clients a majority of my clients are double income households who are earning between, say, combined incomes of about 170 to 200,000 a year.
Mm.
And on those sort of incomes, double incomes, I'm able to get them to be saving between $2,000 and $4,000 a month by the end of that 3-month period. So
Yeah.
we've gotten them like a complete review of their bills, complete summary of their spending, gone through their money leaks, got them a structure set up, and got them savings goals in place.
So it looks like if they follow what you say, they can be able to put aside like $50,000 a year. Yeah, a year, correct?
Yeah.
Because $4,000 for
12
12
months. Yeah.
months is around 50,000, correct?
Yeah.
Well, it's big money. If you think in 10 years, if 500 grand,
Yeah.
plus what many other things they can maybe put investment or other things, correct?
That's correct. And when I say combined incomes of 170 to 200, for example, that's after tax. So that's how much we've got to play with. Yeah, that's an after tax amount. So I'm typically aiming to get my clients onto a 20% sort of savings ratio
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
of like 20% of their income that they're saving. And then once they've built to answer your question, once they've used that to build their buffer, then we can talk about options for at least education for investing, whether it's buying a property or investing in shares. And as a coach, I don't give a personal recommendation to clients about what to do with that. It's more going through the education and the options for them so that they can make their own informed decisions.
What are the ugly investment that you will never make, even if you have the money to make it?
Yeah, I have not ever invested in crypto, actually, personally. I know there's a lot
What
of
about crypto? Why crypto is a no? Because you're not the only one. There's many people that I'm talking with, especially in your field. People does business and they say no, I will never touch crypto. What's going on there?
Look, I may get some feedback about this because I have not gone down the rabbit hole with investigating it. Just from my limited understanding, it chews up a lot of the computers. It's like an ethical dilemma for me. The computers that they use to generate the crypto put a lot of energy. It's bad for the environment, I guess. So from my perspective, that's your investments have to be aligned with your values. And so from my limited knowledge of crypto, that is
Okay.
why I haven't invested up until now. But I'm happy for someone to prove me wrong. If crypto is good for the environment, please reach out and tell me and give me your evidence.
That's good. That's good. Anything else that you will never put the money in?
So I will never put my money in somewhere where everyone is talking about it. There is a principle when it comes to investing. You want to buy when it's low and sell when it's high. If there is a lot of enthusiasm for a particular new stock out there at the moment, for example, let's say when Tesla first started and it was all a lot of hype, I would never put my money into an area that is overhyped and being talked about because from my perspective, there's already so many people to buy in. It's not a good deal for me if I buy in as well.
Okay. And any other physical things that you will never invest?
Physical things. I mean, I'm not going to invest in something that I don't understand myself. So if someone brought me an investment about subdividing a block of land in the middle of Africa, I would not have any clue about that, and I would have to spend a lot of my own time trying to learn about it. So if it's an investment that is outside my area of understanding, then I'm not going to invest.
This was very fascinating conversation. Would you like to give me a couple of books, if you want to, that maybe people can start to read and maybe they can start to have an understanding of what you're talking about? Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, so for business owners, Profit First is a really great book to get your money mindset, your structure. It's called Profit First. Yeah, so it talks to you about how a lot of business owners get into the trap of kind of being what's the word, like trapped in their business, so they never are earning any profits. So they've got maybe a successful business, but it's not actually creating them any financial freedom. Book for business owners. I personally really love this book called The Soul of Money. And it was written by a lady who had a husband who was in a really well paid, very high paid job, actually. And she took on the role of getting charitable donations, sort of like being the salesperson for a charitable organization. So she used to go around talking to rich people who had money enough to make large donations to a non-for-profit. And she has written a collection of stories about her experiences working with and getting to know and understand rich and wealthy people. So I really love that one for a bit of the off the beaten track book recommendation for working on your money mindset.
Okay, that's good. And we at the end of this talk. Thank you so much, Hannah. Would you like to tell me where, if people want to work with you, if they're interested to work with you, where they can find you?
Yes, so they can come to my website, Hannah Rose Richards, and that's Hannah with an H at the end, HANNAH, hannahroserichards.com.au, and they can find me on my website.
Okay. Well, what to say? Hannah, thank you to be my first interviewer at this podcast. I hope to see you again and maybe have other conversation about money. I think it's a fascinating topic. And well, see you on the next.
Thank you very much for having me today.